Hey, there's Nico. What's that? He came with colorants.
Hello.
Oh, there you go. He came with colorants.
Hey, check this out, mate. You saw who brought us Red Bulls?
It was Delon. Yeah.
Delon. There you go. Okay, wait, hang on. No, wait.
No, but hold on.
No, wait.
At least
There's a
you got a
story.
decent
No,
flavour.
there's a story.
Yeah.
So, if we'll get into this as we go into the podcast, but this is great. F400,
Yeah.
okay, started a new engine. They brought in a new engine. It was the orange. It's an orange engine. Okay.
You need wings.
And Delon, and Delon and Tillotson,
Yeah.
theirs is a blue engine. So the Tillotson's tagline is the Blue Revolution.
Nice.
So Nico, in his wisdom and his marketing prowess, called the new engine the Orange Evolution. So Delon brought us. He didn't bring us the right color Red Bulls.
Yeah, no, he brought
He
the
brought
watermelon
watermelon,
ones.
but just
Yeah.
I think that was a bit of a poke, and that was a good
But
one.
there is
I'll give that one credit. I've got respect
There's a
for
blue
that one.
edition of this as well, which Delon. Hello, Delon. You could have brought the blue one, bro. But yeah, just heads up, and also heads up for you, which you don't know about just yet, and not to take away anything from the four pack of Red Bull that you brought us. Appreciate it, much appreciated, Nix. But over the weekend, our friends at the other brand, Monster, are going, can we come on the show, please? I was like, yes, we can.
Cut that. We'll cut everything that just happened up. Cut it out.
Yeah.
Cut it out. It can't be
No,
on the
it's all
show.
good. It's all
It
good.
can't
It's
be
all
on the
good. It's
show.
all good. Of course, we
Thank you,
keep it in the
Nico.
show.
So I always see you guys with Monster. So I thought, Monster or...
Oh, Paul, you weren't
Red
quite
Bull,
sure, eh? See.
But they didn't have the appropriate colour. So
They do have an orange
go
one.
with the
They've got a
right
mucho macho one, I think they do on that
Yeah,
one.
they do, which is my favorite actually.
But they actually launched a brand new one. I mean, we're diverging here a little bit, but we can't because that's what we're allowed to do. They launched a brand new flavour at the Hill Climb this weekend, so it was quite cool. And then they literally merchandised it out to the entire parade down the town, and people were going mull for it. So yeah,
was it a bit of an uphill battle to get one?
It was. Yeah, I had one in my back pocket, and then some chick said to me, "It's my birthday, I didn't get one." I was like, "Okay, you can have mine." That was that sorted, you know. Nico Roets, dude,
How are
good
you
to have
doing?
you up, man.
thank you.
Listen, from my side, it's a very small relationship or sort of understanding of what Nico does. I know you know a little bit more, but I think from a introduction point of view, like we always like to do here, take us through where you're from, how you got involved in motorsport, and what you're up to at the moment.
Yeah, so basically I run a 400. It's, if I remember correctly, the oldest, besides Formula V, continuously running series in the country.
Wow.
So we started up in 95 to bridge the gap between rental cars and pure two-stroke racing, because there's been that chasm between how slow rental cars are versus fast two-stroke cars, and there's a plethora of people that can race, but they can't really afford to race two-stroke.
Sure.
So A400 basically bridges that gap between pure rental karting and professional two-stroke racing. So it's been running since 95, 96, even before road tax.
And if I'm correct, that's the ones we raced at V-Town for the 12-hour and the 24-hour, eh? Or am I out there?
Okay, so that's where I think this conversation is going to end up working towards. I like the word plethora because they could use it last time. I'm going to steal it. There've been a plethora of people trying to bridge that gap between what is rental karting and two strokes. There have always been two trains of thought in it over the last few years. I've been involved in four-stroke karting since 2005. But there's always been two factions. There's been the Pro Karts, which has been a European-based series that's run throughout the world with a twin-engined, specifically built four-stroke kart for endurance karting. And then what was at that stage called Vanguard.
Yeah, originally it was F200.
F200.
And then it went through some evolutions of trying to go a little bit quicker, because the F200s were 200cc Briggs & Stratton engines. that made a whopping 9 horsepower.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll get up the hill at Doobie in that.
No, for sure not. For sure not.
At one stage, they were all running together.
Okay.
And then eventually a split kind of happened between Kyalami Kart Circuit and Furnican Kart Circuit, where they each had their own endurance karting series, because historically 4-stroke karting has always been endurance. And then that's kind of how it stayed for the last 15 years, with 2 separate factions being away from each other and doing their own thing.
There we go.
F400, over its iterations and different engine changes, has become and still is, I think, the largest karting grid we have in Southern Africa at every event.
Well, that's a sort of chip of the old shoulder there from your side of things. This means the job's being done well. What are you doing to attract the drivers, and what are you doing to attract the teams to be involved?
So initially we wanted to have a
Hold that
simple,
thought. Sorry.
Thank you.
Coffee's here.
Thank
Guess
you.
what? Coffee lady. Say hi, coffee lady.
you.
Hi. TC. There you go.
And I'm under punishment because I spilled my last coffee, so I don't
You
get
spilled your last coffee. You're not allowed to have coffee in the studio ever again.
Unless
Thank you, man.
cup. I'm only allowed plastic cups now.
Oh, that's so cool. Anyway, back to that question. So get the drivers in. How do we do it?
So we need to try to keep it as simple as possible, as cheap as possible, and as fun as possible. So standardize as much as we can, and make it simple for someone who has his own fish and chip shop, or someone who works as an accountant, to come and race without having super technical knowledge. So and that's why we'll get later to the orange engine, which really is that ethos of keeping it simple, just allowing people to get in the kart and drive.
Is it kind of an arrive and drive that you're offering, or do the guys actually own the karts themselves?
No. You own your own equipment, but everything is equalized as far as possible. And as Kyle said, when we ran the 390 engines, it worked very well, to the extent where in the mid-2010s, 2013, 2014, we had 60 to 70 endurance entries at a race.
Yeah, that's good, eh? Man, that's
We
good.
had to split.
And I suppose that's split sort of 3-4 drivers per team, eh?
Correct. So that also makes
Yo.
the cost far more affordable, because you're splitting the financial layout across a couple of drivers.
You see, that also lays me up into my next question, is that F400 originally, for the majority of its lifespan, has always been about endurance. Over the last few years, you have brought in the sprint concept behind it. And I've been in the paddock and around and run teams and run drivers in that series. I've raced in drivers. I've raced with you in teams. I've raced against you in teams. And the biggest kickback that always seems to come out of the conversation between endurance and sprints and the changes in 400 is that, and this is a conversation that I've had with other people, and tried to explain it as best as I could to them, but I couldn't quite find the words. So I want to ask you the question that they've asked me, is F400 over the years has gone from being 2 or 3 4-hour heats or 6-hour spec or a 9-hour spec to now having 2 or 3 maybe 1-hour heats and sprints scattered across, which kind of spreads out the day. And then that advantage of being 3 drivers in a car, splitting the cost between 3 drivers, and then still getting that level of drive time, that drive time is now being diminished because of the sprint aspect. That is the question that's thrown out to you a lot, and I'm sure it's something you have an answer for. That's kind of what I want to get out.
There's 2 chains of thought around that. Some people want longer races, not all of them. Some people want shorter races, and also we introduced the junior classes quite a while back to cater for a wider audience, because now we cater for kids from very young to the master's class, which is in excess of 40 years old. But to answer your question, you still get like 4 hours of track time on a race day as an endurance kart. But the sprint entry allows people who battle to find reliable teammates to drive with them.
All right.
So there's a lot of people that want to race, and every week I get messages from the website that says, I want to race, but where do I find a teammate? How do I get involved? And the sprint category allows them to race without having to have a teammate involved.
So on that, just before we jump in, good reference for our editor there. Website is?
F400karting.co.za.
There it is. Cool.
Simple as that.
Yeah. So just there it is, popped up on the screen. So if I want to get involved, and I love getting behind wheel of a race car or behind the bars of a motorbike at any stage I can. But it's also like, it's time consuming. So I can understand where you're saying the guys are maybe not getting as much seat time in, and the sprint races maybe not for them. They're looking at the endurance championship side of things, and that's been the proving ground of this class. But I also see it from your point of view going, some of the guys can't get those individuals that are going to match them in terms of their abilities. Is it necessarily a prerequisite though? Because, you know, if I jump into a cart with the two of you, you guys are going to have the advantage because you're lighter, you've got some skills. I have a small amount of skills in a go-kart, but not as much as what probably the two of you have got. But if I wanted to join in and I joined your team, there's a possibility that we're going to have a relatively competitive team. So how do you sort of match those drivers up as you get those requests?
Yeah, so I don't match drivers up. They make their own teams.
Okay.
They decide who races with whom.
I think where Greg's question was going there, and I think I kind of understand it. And this has been a conversation we've had in 400 before as well, to the point that you actually at one stage banned, or not banned, you wouldn't pair up more than one MSA licensed karter with another one. There was that conversation because what happened is teams were getting involved, like Honda South Africa, like the rest of them, and then bringing drivers in as, let's call them ringers,
yes,
with years more experience. So what they've done in GT World or Endurance World in most of the GT categories is you have platinum, silver, and bronze drivers that you can only mix a certain amount between.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going.
Is that not? So that's actually not a bad idea.
If I come in as the bronze driver and I'm also the weighted driver because I'm a lot heavier than both of you, but you are now sitting silver. Carl's race national, so he'd have gold status. Then we then have a perfect team in writing, okay, on the paper. But not necessarily, because then you might sort of see somebody that's in another team and go, maybe we should approach, Vuyo, or should we approach Brad or get somebody else in? Because Greg was good, but he was a little bit slow. We need to just up the pace slightly so we can be on the podium or take a victory. So that's kind of where I was going. There's got to be some kind of negotiation process that happens. Are you involved in that at all, or is it just left to the teams to sort out?
No.
I'm always laughing because it's actually been a conversation through F1 for a while.
Yeah, so as much as F1 is fun, and we have a mix of team breakups or compositions in the class, it's extremely competitive. And Kyle will be able to tell you, over the years, we've had a bunch of national champions racing with us. We've had the Van der Lindes, we've had the Shorters, we've had Campos, we've had the Adlams.
Yeah.
We've had pretty much, I think if you name any main circuit driver or champion, they've raced F1.
Yeah. I mean, Wolford was there for years.
Wolford was racing.
It's always been a class that the guys come in and play in. And generally it's, Keegan's got a mate that bought a kart. He suggested F1 just so he comes and drives with them. But there's never been a standardized way to say, okay, you can't have Kyle, Bevan Williams, and Sebastian Anzetti in the same team. And I make that reference because the three of us did the last race, not on the same team, but on the track together. And I'll be dead honest, and I've never done this before, and I'm going to do it now, is that I was actually wrong when it came to F100 over the last year. I've been kicking it in the head for a good year because of the 390s and the experience I had with the Hondas and the issues that we had. F400 is based on your engine is sealed in dyno to a horsepower spec. It's taken to a dyno area, it's put on a thing, it's given a runtime, and it's put together in a cent with a couple of engine builders that are allowed to build engines. There was, and I still firmly believe there has been massive disparity in those 390s. We'll get to the new engine now, but a new engine comes out and they've said no modification. Now, it's a water pump engine. It's made, mass-produced. So I've been saying for the last 6 months, this is exactly what happened with Honda. We all believed in it, and 3 months down the line, we had massive disparity and they couldn't get it right. However, I entered the last round. I raced with Precision Motorsport and Derek in a team, and the top 8 diced with each other for 45 minutes with very little variance in motors. There was a big variance between mine and the others, but that, I think, was a drivetrain issue. But in terms of horsepower, in a 4-stroke, it's the closest it's been in F400 I've been involved for 15 years, and it's the closest it's been in those 15 years. And those 8 cars, it's still new. It could still change, but right now it is super close together. And I think that's where that question comes, is going, okay, but now we're going to have differences in driver. And you were talking about, it's a nice place for it to come, but there's no professional teams. But then you look at, in retrospect, the teams that you're with in terms of the Paralympic team, that is not any longer a hack together 4-pound hammer and angle grinder team. That is a precise motorsport team. You've got Precision Motorsport now joining, with bringing myself in as a driver, bringing in Neil Basilio to do all the work behind the scenes. You're ending up with front area teams. So is now not a good idea to start having that conversation where guys that come with trailers and fenters and come and play now have to compete with basically a top professional karting team. It's not very far away from what Toyota Gazoo is in terms of two-stroke karting. So does that conversation now not become, do we need to separate a privateer championship versus the guys that are now a pro and a pro-am, if I can put it that way?
Yeah, we've been talking about that. Peter's been a big driver around trying to get the classes separated into a more professional teams kind of thing and a privateer kind of class. The problem is you have teams that would wash the kart on a Sunday or a Saturday afternoon and race it on a Sunday. Then you have the teams like your team, the Paralympic team, the father and son team. They do testing once a week. They set the kart up. The karts are always maintained meticulously. So it becomes difficult to race an older kart as I'm just quickly doing it for the fun and expect to be at the front, because the guys at the front are quick drivers and they put the effort into to get the karts right. So the flip side of that is you also don't want to have 20,000 classes, because then you have 3 or 4 karts in a class, which it becomes boring. You know? So it's a difficult question. We are looking at it, but no matter where you race, you're always going to have the very quick people at the front.
No, of course.
And some of the ones that are midfield to the back who are just racing for the fun of it.
I'm glad you put it that way, because it's exactly what I was going to say to Carl now is, despite the fact that you've got Precision and all the other teams that were mentioned, and putting in the efforts and doing the testing in between and maybe doing a more kind of pro job of running what was a good endurance team in an F400, the issue is that to make endurance successful, you have to have the 30 karts on the grid.
Correct.
Because what's happened as an example, and we chatted to Stewie about it in the Endurance Championship, the lack of cars in Endurance Championship right now is really detrimental to their championship as a national. Because when I first joined SAES, we were sitting with a field of 45, 50 cars on the grid, which would then sort of, with a bit of here and there, cars breaking, guys coming back later in the race, fixing the car because it's a 9 hour, you've got enough time to get back on, still getting into a podium position in each of their classes. When you go down to 25 cars starting, and then after an hour, only 7 of them stay on the track, that doesn't work for me, you know? So I know it's not the format that you run, but in order to keep those 7 teams from just being the only 7 teams in, for instance, as an example in your series, how do you keep those other 23 drivers
the
happy?
privateers motivated? Yeah. How do you keep the privateers motivated?
That's where I think the conversation has to go with what you've suggested, Carl, and what you're talking about there, Nico, is I think it's probably a good idea to sort of get the heads of those teams around a table, get the few sort of genuinely committed privateers onto a table and say, right, guys, you know, we've seen the success of GT racing worldwide, where you've got the gentleman racer who owns the car. Okay, he brings in a silver cup, a silver driver, and he brings in a gold driver, so they can all have an equal shot at the top. And a prime example of that would be, you know, Team Perfect Circle going to the 9 hour. They arrived there with Andre Besaidenote as the owner of the team and a very good driver, but of course nowhere near the skill of the GT drivers that came from SRO's main championship. Chuck in Stuart White as an example with Stradale Motorsport and his team. But Stewie drove with Arnie, and he drove with, I think, Jeffries, if I'm not mistaken. So those are top 3 drivers.
Yeah.
I mean, Axel Jeffries and Stewie have gone F1 route at some point.
They're gold drivers at the European spec.
Exactly. So this is probably, and I appreciate the fact that it is, I'm going to say it to you, it is the most successful karting series in the country because of the size of the grids and the amount of competitors that you have involved in a race meeting. Now you have to play with egos. Okay? No, only teasing.
No, I get
But
you.
I'm saying guys like Carl who have the ability, They know they can get to the front. They know they can win. If their cart is prepped correctly, they've done the testing, they're going to be at the front. Then you've got a guy like me who's going, I'd like to have a go, and I can run. I can lap half a second or a second off his pace when I'm on a seat time, etc., etc.
Yeah.
I'm not going to beat him because my weight's a factor or my skill's a factor. You may have a couple of lady drivers. We've got plenty of them coming through. I mean, I just look at St. Peter this weekend on the hill. Massive improvements compared to last year, MSA4. So the thing is, I like the format that you've got, and I think it's brilliant. But now I think it's time for a bit of fine tuning, and maybe that negotiation has to be put onto the table.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we tried the bronze, silver, and gold classes before, and James Forbes was one of the drivers that came to me and said to me, listen, I'd rather come 10th out of everyone than be first
in a class
and
full
be
of
11.
three.
Yeah. So we tried it. It literally, again, it's very difficult because some people are for, some people are not for it. Especially if the equipment is the same and everyone's got the same, then people tend to think that if I'm getting a trophy for being first, but I'm actually 11th or 10th or 7th or whatever the split is, then I'm not really a winner.
Yeah.
So
so it's not a participatory thing.
We've got into
There's
this,
aspirations there.
But
Okay, sorry.
I time keep for the other
For the other
series.
series.
Yeah.
I'm good, bro. I'll time. I'm good at timing. I can talk and time at the same time.
But it's a question that's thrown around often.
Yeah.
It is a difficult question, and it's a tricky thing to answer because F400 historically has been a labor of love. It's not been a commercial venture. Nobody's making money in F400. That's the biggest difference between it and other classes. The aim is to grow motorsport, not to make money. So I tried to step away from it.
And it fell apart.
And it completely turned into a disaster. So much so that by COVID actually saved F400 because when the previous organizational people who ran it immigrated, we were left with massive debts, zero rand in the bank account, and very few teams. So COVID made people a little bit hungry to race again. And after COVID, the first race, I think we had 35 entries, which was quite a good
nice recovery.
Yeah. But to answer your question, nobody else is stepping up to do it. People have tried, and because it's not a financial venture, you have to do it for the love of racing.
Yeah.
And I stepped away from racing for a very long time. This year I started racing again just for shits and giggles, really.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it.
Well, that's why I'm back.
Because I'm like you, Greg. I'm not fast enough anymore. I used to be quite quick, but...
I'm getting to the stage that that's starting to be true for me as well.
The bottom line is exactly what I said. Like for someone like me that has had a bit of racing experience, I've literally raced everything in the country at one point in my commentary career, but it only happened because I was a commentator, not because I could afford it. I've been gifted opportunities and blessed with opportunities to race at national championship level in production cars, at national championship level in supermoto. I've done a few of the endurance championships races. I've done a few endurance championship karting events as well. But I think my point is that should I want to get back involved, and exactly what you just said there, I need to find a series that's going to work for me. And from the sounds of things, this is the route to go. I've listened to the Tillotson argument. I've listened to what Nick's doing, and that might be too much for me, whereas this might be sort of my niche. But in saying that as well, I go, yeah, that's a nice route to go. But I've got to then find a couple of other guys that want to join me and try and split that cost in terms of the endurance. Or do I buy my cart and just say, listen, on the day, who's here?
Or go
who's
do
looking for a team?
sprint.
Or do
some sprint stuff. Yeah, or do some sprint stuff.
The
sprint stuff, I think, it's cool and it's great, but it's not for me. I being the performance and professional athlete that I am, I think I'm built for endurance as opposed to being built for sprint. And it worked well when I did my 24 hours on the bike at Red Star. I was able to stay out for 2.5 hours on the bike without having to do a stop and then come in for a first stop on the 24-hour race on my own, Whereas other guys were coming in every half an hour and they were getting quick changes and giving the faster driver and then, of course, the faster rider. And come night time, there's specific riders that are good at night. There's specific riders that are good in the rain. I didn't have that opportunity. I didn't have that choice. The 12-hour or the 24-hour we did at V-Town, I know that I got called at about 3 o'clock in the morning. I was out cold and they couldn't find the other drivers that were supposed to. And they said, Greg, get in the cart. And I literally drove until 7 o'clock the next morning. So I did a 4-hour stint, literally early morning into the dawn, going, where are the other drivers? And they were never around. But yeah, I think the fact that you've taken this on is admirable. And I know exactly how you feel, having run national championship as a part of the organizing committees for Vodacom Power Tour and being part and parcel of it, as well as the television production, and then taking it on myself at West Bank Super Series and seeing that as much as I wanted to race cars at that time, there's no way I could. There's no way I could do exactly what you've just said. You know, you're trying to run a team, you're racing in a team, and you're trying to run the series. It's a difficult hat to carry on all 3 occasions. So when you say no one else steps up to the plate, then the people below you have got to realize it's like
if you don't like the person in charge, either step up and do it or vote for someone else.
It's like being Sam's going to love this one as well. It's like being a director on a HOA or a board of directors in a complex. No one wants to do the job, okay? But when you step up and do the job, you do one thing wrong and you just get cucked on.
Correct.
You know,
You're the biggest.
and that's I think what's it's the history what I've just heard now. You know, everybody stepped up, and then they got shot down. But the guys that are shooting them down are not prepared to step up. They're just saying, just run the series and make it work.
Oh, look, I'll be dead honest. I walked away. I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm out.
So what does help is we have a working committee that helps me to do the most of it. And it's made up of people who actually have years of motorsport experience. So Kyle mentioned Philip, he's part of it. We have Derek part of it. So Peter Lance helps us with that as well. So we have a good
experience.
A good experience and knowledge base that helps us make decisions. I'm not the only one. In fact, I try to stay away from making decisions
as much as possible
because Kyle mentioned I'm involved. And the engine story with the orange engines is completely outsourced. Yes, I brought them in, but they are being checked and sealed by completely independent parties.
That's the next question on and I actually want because no, I don't have an answer for it, and it gets asked because I have clients that obviously want to do something, and they go, oh, I want to go do this, or I want to go do that, and I have, and in the past, and I've actually had to go and put my tail between my legs and shake hands of other karting organizations and promoters because I've always picked a lane. I'm no longer on that point where I want to pick a lane. I now just want bums and seats, and I don't care what you're racing. As long as you're racing, you get out, you have a smile on your face, and you had a safe weekend of racing. I couldn't care less.
Exactly.
As long as more people are driving, fantastic. But I've had the conversation, or the question asked to me, and I can't answer it because it comes from karting clients who goes, I don't feel like I can win in F400 sprints or in F400 endurance because the team I'm racing against has the independent dyno facility in their premises. So
the orange engines don't get dynoed. They are prohibited from going on the dyno. They are checked by a mechanical engineer, certified that they are exactly to the same spec. From the first batch, we had 75 engines coming in the first batch. We took one engine out, which was...
So you say they're not allowed to run...
That's the one they give you for me.
Yeah, that's probably the one I They said, you say that dynos, they don't go in dynos, but you obviously had to use that to identify...
Correct.
This. So
to get the balance of performance.
So in other words, Tillerson's also a series that is exactly the same as... When I say exactly the same, it's right on the same premise. Single make engine, single make spec sheet, they all should run together. Okay. Yep. Now, my query to you was... Well, not my query. My response to that was... Yes, but that's a modified racing engine with racing parts. It should be a lot closer together than a standard production engine being the orange engine. Okay. But now you've obviously taken those 75 engines and put them on a dyno after a spec sheet. So they have been dynoed.
Correct.
Because the misconception is they're never going to get dynoed, so we don't know. But they have been dynoed, but only yourself and a few others have gone through them and gone, that one needs to come out because it's too slow, or that one needs to come out because it's too fast.
Yeah, so literally we have 3 people certifying them, one of which is Dewald Brummer.
A name we all know.
Yeah.
There you are.
And incidentally, he's racing with me on Sunday, so good luck on that
Thankfully,
one.
I've moved to sprint, so I'm safe.
So it's Dewald, it's Jimmy from Father and Son, Peter Lance, and then I sign off the final check that they've done.
Okay.
And yes, the engines can have a big variance, and that's where we ran into problems with the Honda engines, because Honda engines were actually quite good up to the point where they stopped making the engine we were using
Yes.
for
The
emissions
H2,
problem. For emissions
issues.
And from that point, F400 had a bit of a wobble where we allowed a different engine, and then modifications started to creep in because there are now 3 different engine block specs and different carbs. And the end result was that the old engine cost probably twice as much as what the current engine costs, and it makes 30% less power.
And when you say cost, we're talking 12,500 rand for an engine bought with clutch, with everything ready to go on.
Correct.
Yes, that's good.
So for the old spec engine with all the mods, crank cutting, the machining and the skimming, and you know what all goes into that, you're looking at 18 to 20K for a race engine versus
That's massive.
yeah.
That's massive. Look, for the everyday Joe that wants to get involved, that is a huge cost saving. The other thing that you both raised, which I don't think you realise, is
I just wanted to mention though, in a meeting, I just wanted to ask this because this is a pertinent question. It's very important, and I want an answer.
Yeah.
You have meetings, but you say Peter Lance is part of the committee. Do you have the meetings with him, or do you do a separate phone call because there's only a certain amount of hours you can have a meeting?
No. We have a post-race meeting every week.
Okay, so that was just me making a friendly poke at Peter Lance.
No.
That I'm hoping you'll get.
He's part of it.
We love you, Peter. I'm just
Thanks for
joking.
the support.
I do love all the pictures he does bring forward. It's just sometimes it takes like 2 hours to finish conversation.
we might make him happy. We'll get Fabi in him.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking
Some of
about.
the conversations do run longer, but you
What,
get,
with Peter Lance in the room? Never. Not a chance.
but yeah. So the engines, yes, they are tested, but to get back to the parity on them, how you treat an engine from day one makes a big difference on how it performs over its lifespan.
Of course.
So if I give you a box engine, brand new, and you don't run it in the correct way, or you don't use the correct oil, it's not going to perform the same as.
Or you
as
run
a
it in
different-
water and don't drain the oil and refresh it, etc.
So what we do is we run them all in exactly the same way. We use the exact same oil in every single engine, and we time it with an exact duration to run them in, and then we test them on the dyno. And from the 75 that we've done, like I said, one was a little bit down on power, and not significantly. It was like 0.5 of horsepower down. But we chose to keep it out because the rest of them were all within 0.2 of a horsepower the same. So, and you can see that on the track. You can see that they are.
Yeah, we
very
did notice
equal.
that. For 8, I think in the wet race even, we were 3 carts running for 45 minutes for the lead. The first heat of the day, I think there were 11 of us.
Yeah.
That ran nose to tail for a good 40 minutes because Derek decided to punish me and leave me out for 40 minutes. For
Just like you wasn't there in the rain, but you wouldn't be in trouble. That's like the equalizer for me.
So yes, they did run very close.
Going back to what I was going to say though, with both of you raised, gentlemen, we're talking about motorsport here. So as much as you think you're good and you know how to do things and you know how to do things and I know how to do things, there are a lot of people out there that know how to do things that you might not know. And policing stock standard one make everything from the box engine, it's not an easy thing to do because
we've had manufacturers fail at it.
There are a lot of stories in the past in various formats of motorsport where the rules have been exceptionally bent or broken but haven't been caught out. So what is the policing process? Have you got a technical advisor? Have you got a technical committee that looks after the cars when they come in? Is there a park for me that they have to go into for a certain amount of time? What's the deal?
Yes to all 3 of those.
Okay, brilliant.
So we literally check the cards in a narrowing net kind of thing. So everyone gets checked. You do self-scrutineering just like all other classes.
Oh, yeah.
Then in the morning you get scrutineered for safety and compliance checks. So it's not technical checks. It's just to make sure your cart has brakes, nothing's falling off, the tires are marked, and the engines are sealed. And then through the day, as people come in through races, you draw a chip out of a bag. And some of the chips say go, some of the chips says check a carb, check the tires, check the seals.
Okay.
So there's randomized checks across all of the competitors.
That's
we
great.
don't only check the front runners, because what we found in historically is that it's not the front running teams that are bending and
around,
pushing the rules. It's the guys that are like just outside the top 10, just inside the top 10, the guys that just need that
Trying
extra
something.
little bit to get to the front. Those are the guys that generally try to push the rules.
And I mean, also, you spoke about weight. There's also the minimum weights as well. Carts
Yes.
weighed after every race, 195 with drivers. Pit stops are no longer, which I don't know if I like too much. I used to love traveling into the pit lane flat out and then stopping just before the weighbridge and then pushing the car.
Well, like you did this morning.
Lies.
A couple of
Wasn't
minutes
me.
ago in the
It
car
wasn't
park.
me. It wasn't
Yeah.
my brakes. locked
Apologies
on the
there to
rear.
the Trev Park building.
My brakes locked. I don't know what happened. The handbrake suddenly
wet.
shot up.
It's wet.
But where did I go with that now? You can't do that with a guy with ADHD. I keep telling you.
Time pit stops. That's
Right,
it.
time pit stops.
Going in.
Even to the point now that you have a 3-minute pit stop. So when you come in, same as what they do in British GT, they actually make the teams with more platinum drivers have a longer stop, which maybe might work as well.
Yeah.
But we have a 3-minute stop. You have to cross the line within 3 minutes. So you got to time your stop. You got to have someone time from the line when you come in. It's quite a strategic
It is.
nightmare. You also have to swap drivers at a stop, which we didn't do at Precision, and Carl did the whole wait station, and then we got penalized for it. We even tried to change helmets, and people still called me. But the point is, we tried.
see?
It didn't work.
Just what I said. Pushing the boundaries. The engine is
rule-
all the same.
The rule was
the
written,
helmets aren't.
The rule was written one way, and we tried a little loophole, and then Nico went, I'm going to close that hole. It's actually Peter, wasn't Nico. Close that hole. Anyway, point I was making. So there's time stops, there's weighted. Everything is trying to, as close as possible, to keep the racing
Equalize
to the point,
it,
to equalize it. To the point that we actually came in after an endurance event. I did 30 minutes, Derek did 20, I did the last 20, I think it was. And in the last 20 minutes, the first 4 drivers that were together at the start were the 4 drivers that were together at the end after 75 minutes. So I think that just proves the closeness of the series and how good the front drivers are. But everything is ruled and spec'd and put forward in terms of a championship. But that then goes to the next question that I wanted to ask, is that you've done this dance a few times where it goes, and Greg's going to love this question, the WAMSA versus MSA. You're currently WAMSA. There was talk of you looking at MSA. Why the choice between the two? Why did you end on WAMSA, like as a decision-making point? And why not the move to MSA? Why did the move to MSA fail and then you come back to WAMSA?
I was never in favor of moving to MSA because
I remember.
the level that we race at is not the same as two-stroke national karting. We don't have tribunal courts and appeal courts and 20,000 protests per race.
And lawsuits.
We're,
And court cases.
we're generally very friendly between competitors. Look, it gets competitive and it gets sometimes a little bit heated, but we don't need that level of bureaucracy, and the main driver was cost. To run an MSA event costs significantly more to run than a normal event, because they have a lot of additional officials. They have specified ambulance medicals that you have to use. They have specified officials and marshals that you have to use.
Of course.
So the whole event just balloons in cost. And that's what we're trying to keep under control, is cost.
And I think that's also important to bring in, is that despite that, you're still running a successful series.
Yes.
You're not having any injuries. You're not having any worries. You've still got all of the prime requirements covered. You don't necessarily have to have the base
requirements.
You don't need to have all the nitty gritty and the stuff above that sometimes isn't really. I mean, I've been on a few occasions when I was still part of MSA's officials, and I was doing commentary as the official commentator on the day, but I was also the environmental officer.
Yes.
So I double up on the duties, but now I'm no longer able to do that. Now you have to have an environmental officer.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, but I was doing the same thing. What am I going to do? I'm going to go and check the toilets. I'm going to go and check that everything's done. That there's rubber mats down. There's whatever the duties entail. That I think is testament to the choice you've made and it might not be a bad choice. But of course, it's a discussion we're having all the time with various people.
What it seems to be the consensus is that anything grassroots and social seems to be left by the wayside at MSA level. From club, which we spoke to Nick
Which is why WOMSA picks it up, because they realise the value of it. You know, WOMSA are picking up classes like yourself,
because of the
oval track
grassroots
guys,
value.
the bike guys, the drifting, the spinning, the drag racing stuff. They're all going and saying, well, listen, you know, we don't want to have to go that whole bureaucracy route. We'd like to just have fun
for something socially and club level,
and still be competitive and end up with something that's, you know, worthwhile.
Which, to the point, brings me to the next thing that you need to raise, is that you've also started looking at creating international opportunities for your drivers in your series.
That's right. So this year, WOMSA has acknowledged that over the past years, the performance of the series and the orange engines for endurance and sprint this year get national status by WOMSA. So it's not a SA national champion per se, but it's SA1 like the sprint guy,
Correct.
the oval guys.
Yeah, I like the oval guys get,
And then in addition to that, we're finalizing the negotiations to get our top teams to go and participate in the Saudi World Series in Dubai.
Sure. There we go. See, so it's worth it. It's working.
Yeah.
On that, how do I get involved? Where do we go?
Straight to the website. The registration is on the website. There's a lot of information. Cost breakdown is there. So it's a big pool of knowledge that you can find there. Other than that, you can straight WhatsApp me from there as well.
Fantastic. Well, there we go. If you want to get involved in F400, this is the man to speak to. He's done an amazing job. Thank you for joining us here on Commentators Curse, and we wish you all the very best. I know that he's eventually going to try and win a championship and steal a seat to Saudi or whatever. But if he does, if he's not available, I just want to let you know my race suit is always in my car. So
it's Tuesday now,
and I don't have to change helmets. I don't have to change helmets to get wins. I can do it on my own. On that note, Nico, thank you so much for joining us, buddy, and thanks for all the insight, because I've certainly learned a huge amount of what I didn't know about F400, and I think it's going to work exceptionally well. Keep doing the job you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Take care then. Bye bye now.